So the first chapter, Master Shantideva covers the benefits of the wish for enlightenment. And in the second chapter, he talks about opening your heart and admitting your feelings to purify your bad deeds. The second chapter is on purifying bad deeds. So we all have these kind of like blinders on. We go through life with certain preconceived notions and certain mental tendencies and predispositions. So there's a part of our mind that says it's okay to spend 50 weeks a year working so that I can have 2 weeks a year to do other things, pursue my own interests, and give up 96% of my time to get 4% back. Right? So we refuse to admit that life, that kind of life, isn't fulfilling, isn't satisfying, is basically a waste of our life energy. The notion that we've got to collect money and where we're just going to die and lose it, and that's enough, is some kind of something in our mind that thinks that that's the way to live, and that's good. It's a good way to live. Right? To collect things that I'll lose at some point, and there's nothing else which is really important or meaningful. There's something in our mind that says take care of yourself and don't think about other people. Right? There's some way of functioning that our mind has which says I'm the most important one and other people aren't important and don't count. And it's difficult to try to think differently. So this idea, if somebody says to you, spend your day thinking about other people, always let someone else go first on the bus or whatever, always offer food to someone else first, always go last. The mind rebels, the mind doesn't want to do it. So this chapter, the second chapter on purifying bad deeds, is around changing the mind's positioning, changing how the mind thinks and operates, trying to remove the blinders, trying to remove the habituation of the mind which says I'm the most important one and other people aren't as important as me, or their suffering or their happiness I don't care about much. Right? So to think that other people are important and I should care about them is not normal. And so it requires a certain amount of cleaning the mind and cleaning the obscurations and the afflictions and the obstacles of the mind, so that one day we wake up and feel like other people are important. What I do to other people is important. Right? There's something that we have to do to the mind so that it thinks that way and so that it functions that way and so that it responds that way. It doesn't just happen on its own. It doesn't happen automatically or naturally, you could say. To wake up and feel like it's more meaningful and more fun to spend my life helping other people, and it makes more sense to spend my life helping other people than just focusing on myself, is not something that's just going to pop up out of nowhere. Right? It's caused, and we have to set the conditions up in our mind to think that way, for the mind to function that way. Right? So, and it makes more sense to help other people, to spend my life helping other people than trying to accumulate more and more and experience more and more and take care of myself more and more. So to wake up one morning and have that thought and have that feeling as a result of cleaning the mind and purifying the mind of negative karmas and karmic obstacles and karmic obscurations. So if we could purify the mind by admitting our past negativities and mistakes and harms that we've done to other people, and reduce those negative energies or seeds in our mind, we would have a different perception of life and we would have a different experience of the world. So, yeah.
John, I mean, we've been drawn along to that point, in these teachings and in our practices. I was on this panel at my daughter's school with 7 people from different religions.
Yeah.
And the atheist and I got into like a thing.
Hope it wasn't a roll on the floor thing.
He said that he just thinks it's naturally logical to think about other people, and I didn't. I mean, I was excited to sort of go into it because I, disagreed, and I had a really hard time doing was it, upaya with him. I mean, like, we've been drawn along, but he's coming from a totally different place, as if it were logical that we aren't thinking about ourselves almost every moment of the day.
And the interesting thing is, for him it is. And everyone has a different mind stream, right? A different mind with a mind stream. So everyone thinks that their frame of reference is the default and the natural one, by and large. You know, my value system and my way of thinking and my way of relating to the world is the correct one, or the natural one, or the right one, right? I mean, one could easily step back and make the objective assessment. Plenty of murderers, plenty of narcissists, on and on and on. So to say it's natural, I mean, we can take a survey of, you know, the billions of people and come up with a number, right? How many people think that way, blah, blah, blah. The point is for us, and for where we are, what is it, right? Is it normal and natural for me, in my mind, to have some altruistic feeling of love and kindness and caring about everyone around me? No, I didn't grow up that way. I didn't come in with that, right? Some of us may have. And if you did, it's wonderful, and you could thank, you know, the you of your past lives for it, right? And absolutely nothing wrong with the argument that people come in that way. It's beautiful. It shows that they were a great practitioner in the past, that they were, you know, had loving, kind, saintly, holy behavior in the past. Kudos, right? What we're saying from a Buddhist perspective is the nature of the desire realm in general, in most realms, beings don't think that way. Beings don't function that way. And that it takes, yes, there are some that are already there, great, it's a spiritual evolution, right? But for those that are not there, you gotta get there. And how do you get there? So Master Shantideva is saying, well, first you gotta get motivated, chapter 1. And second, you gotta clean the negative karmas out of your mind stream so that it's not so polluted and not so negative and not so geared towards being oblivious to others and not caring if you hurt others, and has some feeling of love and altruism in it. Right? So like that. I mean, there is no default state, if you will. You know what I mean? Something like that. So Mr. Shantideva has this as the second chapter because you can't get to compassion unless you get rid of your old negative karmas, a lot of your old negative karmas. You know? He's saying your negativity is in the way of your love and compassion. And it just makes sense, right? I mean, am I going to hate someone and love someone at the same time? No. Am I going to be angry and loving at the same time? No. Am I going to be jealous and loving at the same time? No. Right? And on and on and on, you know, from coarse to subtle levels of mental process, right? So he's very clear here. He's like, look, if you want to have a loving mind, a compassionate mind, that's a pure mental state. That is a more pure mental state. If you want to get to a more pure mental state, clean some of your crap up. Of course. That's all, right? So it's very interesting to think of love and compassion as being cleaner and purer, right? But doesn't it just make sense, right? Love is this beautiful feeling. It's beautiful, sweet, wonderful feeling, right? Of course it's a cleaner, better, purer state, right? Something like that. So that's the, you know, so compassion will always seem naive or fanatical or misguided or, you know, crazy to someone who has a negative mind, right? I mean, you can walk out on the street and ask your average New Yorker, should you care about yourself more or should you care about this person you don't know on the subway? You know, chances are they're going to say myself, right? It's just the nature of where they're at. And it's because of negative karmas in the mind that we believe we have to take care of ourselves and not worry about other people. It is a mental state. It is a function of, our mind functions that way because of habituation and imprinting and seeds, right? Energetic impulses, right? Okay, so thinking that we have to take care of ourselves and not worry about other people is an obstacle. And we have to do chapter 2 to clear those obstacles to get through the rest of the book. So Master Shantideva is saying, look, you got to get motivated, you got to value, you know, loving kindness, compassion, you got to value bodhicitta, and you got to get your mind to a state of sufficient cleanliness and purity that you can actually feel some kind of love and compassion towards people. And you got to get rid of the negative karmas which are obstructing that and afflicting you and preventing you from that, because you can't have both. You can't have love and jealousy at the same time, you know, towards the same object. It's like, I know, Bruce, okay. I have to be careful what I say, right? All right. So chapter 2, we're getting rid of the negative karma in our mind that keeps us from realizing that taking care of others is the smartest thing we can do with our life, the most exciting thing we can do with our life, the most fulfilling thing we can do with our life, right? So what's chapter 3 about?
Actually getting the wish.
Collecting the causes, right? Nothing just pops up randomly, everything's caused. So then the third chapter is, well, how do you collect the causes to have bodhicitta? How do you collect the causes to have this feeling of love and compassion in one's heart, right? So how do we collect that good energy, right? So what do you need to get bodhicitta, right? It's not enough to just clear away the negativity from your mind, right? That's necessary, but you have to go further. You have to collect the causes for feeling love and compassion, right? So that's called collecting good energy, good karma, right? And that's chapter 3. And it's called obtaining bodhicitta, right? And so that's the main point of chapter 3 is how to collect that good karma, all right? It's dedicated to certain spiritual practices which you have to do regularly to collect virtue. And guess what? They're the same practices we do before meditation. The things we learned in Ganmu Lingema. It's the 7 limbs, it's collecting good energy, purifying negative energy, right? Collecting virtue. So those sorts of things. Process of making offerings, prostrations, rejoicing, requesting teachings. Things like that are all found in chapter 3 of the guide. That's where they come from. Collecting heavy-duty good karma. Okay, to get to the point where you realize that the only meaningful thing to do with your life is to help other people. Okay, and the 4th chapter is called being careful. Being careful in everything you do, using carefulness, and it refers to what? Not blowing the good karma you've collected. Right? Mindfulness, awareness. It's like a delicate, I mean, think about it. It's like, I don't know, what would be a good example? Like somebody who's like, stopped drinking after having, been a heavy drinker for a long time, right? It's a delicate state of mind. It has to be protected. It has to be cared for, nurtured, watched, right? Or like a delicate little shoot that's coming up in plant that's coming up with a little first shoot in dangerous conditions, right? It has to be watched. Has to be guarded, has to be looked after. So this is like, okay, you've purified your negativity, you've collected some causes to actually have bodhicitta start to arise. Pay attention. Don't blow that mind state. You got some baby bodhicitta going here now. Okay. Pay attention to your mind state. Pay attention to what's going on. Don't do things which are going to blow your baby bodhicitta out of the water. Right? Pay attention. Okay. I finally reached the place where I halfway sensed that it would be important to take care of other people instead of myself. Don't ruin it. Right? Feed it, nurture it, protect it. And so this chapter is devoted to methods for protecting your baby bodhicitta. Right? How to use carefulness to safeguard your baby bodhicitta. Right? Okay. 5th chapter is called guarding awareness, mindfulness. Typically mindfulness is a state which you use in meditation, right? If you start to get dull, you apply mindfulness, you're watching your own mind. And you say, oh, my mind is going off. My mind is getting agitated. My mind is getting lethargic, right? And so it brings you, this mindfulness brings you back to where you need to be. And so this is a chapter on the ethical way of life, which they call guarding awareness. So it's perfection number 2. They get into the second perfection. So we start to get into perfections here. Master Shantideva starts to bring the 6 perfections of Mahayana path in here, right? So being mindful and watching yourself, catching yourself when you start to yell at someone or get angry or lie or whatever it's going to be. You have this. Think about how it goes. Someone says something. I start to get irritated, and I've got like 2 seconds to catch myself before I'm really annoyed and irritated and saying something I shouldn't be saying, right? And so that's what this chapter is about, is we have this little short window of opportunity between the impulse arising to be negative and stopping myself. And so this chapter is about how to guard my mind, guard my awareness, and deal with myself so that I don't engage in negativity. Right? And you can call that ethics, but it's basically restraining from harm, right? I mean, ethics is essentially restraining oneself from harming others, right? Okay. So that was the second perfection. What about the first perfection, giving, right? So that actually comes a bit later. We'll get to it. So the sixth chapter is patience, not getting angry. I mean, patience not in the sense of waiting for a bus and not caring if the train's late. Patience in the sense of when somebody's pushing your buttons and conditions are right to lose it, you don't, right? And the like optimal lose it scenario, you don't, right? So that is the sixth chapter, not getting angry. So and getting angry destroys tremendous amounts of positive energy, right? I mean, you could, getting fired up and getting really angry and blasting somebody could ruin years of relationship building. I mean, it takes a lot of work to develop some kind of deep, intimate relationship, and it doesn't take much in the way of anger and harsh words to really put a big hole in that, right? All right. So that's the third perfection. Okay. Chapter 7 is joyful effort. So, joyful effort, I mean, it really just boils down to being happy, doing good. When you think of effort, think of sweating and grunting, and I have to like lift bricks or do something I don't want to do, or oh God, I have to like go meditate for 3 hours and I don't want to, and that's my joyful effort or something. It's just being really glad to be helping people. It's being really glad to be doing virtue. It's like, I'm really glad I'm meditating. I'm really glad that I'm thinking about other people. That's it. And how to cultivate that in yourself, right? How to have this kind of pure, happy energy within oneself, within one's mind and body, is one is working to help others and benefit others, right? All right. And then next we have the 8th chapter, which is meditative concentration, chapter on meditative concentration, which you have to see emptiness, right? An hour or two of meditating a day to see emptiness. I think the main thing to say here, and I have to confess that I'm guilty of it, is that worldly pursuits trump daily meditation practice. We think, well, I have to work on this project, or I have to, take care of this, that, or the other thing, for family or job or work or household or whatever it is. And it's always the other thing is more important, right? But as we said before, it doesn't matter what worldly thing you're engaged in. It's broken. And no matter what you do, you can't ultimately fix anything, Whatever it is that you're doing, is it going to matter? It's going to change, and it's going to be a problem later, or it's going to fade away or die or disappear, whatever the case may be. Your daily meditation practice is the thing which will ultimately fix everything. So it's some kind of false belief that the things in the outer world are more important than my daily meditation practice. And it's this thing that we get into, which is, well, if I fix that, and I fix that, and I fix that, those are important, and I feel satisfied, and I feel good. So I'm busy with all those things, and now I don't have time to meditate, right? It doesn't work. It's a false storyline. It's a bad storyline. It's a deceptive storyline. The only thing which is going to bring fulfillment and satisfaction is the meditation practice, because it can lead to wisdom, right? Which puts an end to all suffering forever. And all the other stuff is the busyness where we're deceiving ourselves into thinking that by being busy, my life is meaningful. It's not. By meditating, by helping others, our life is meaningful. It's very hard to stay aligned with that, I confess. Okay, so, that's Buddhist worldview, and we have to make a choice. My practice, and my ethics, and my helping other people is the most important thing in the world, and it's the point of life, and it's the thing that matters more than anything else. And it's my career, and it's my first job, and my first priority. And the rest is the filler. And we have it flipped. It's like, well, I'm busy with everything else, job and work and projects and family and tasks and blah, blah, blah. And if I have a little time left over, then I'll do some practice, or I'll do some meditation, or I'll do a little spiritual thinking of some kind. It's backwards. It's the wrong worldview. You know, we have to choose Buddhist worldview. I mean, if we're going to be serious in this path and practice, we have to choose Buddhist worldview, which says helping other people is first, being ethical is first, you know, daily practice is first. It's the priority, and it is my career. You know, if people say, "What do?" You know, I'm a bodhisattva. That's what I do. You know, I'm a spiritual practitioner. That's what I do. You know, I devote my life and my time and my energy to that first and foremost, and that's where my time and energy and resources go. And the rest is filler. All right. And then chapter 9 is the wisdom chapter. And this is where Master Shantideva dukes it out with all of the Indian worldviews of 700 AD, which are the same as Western worldview now, basically. You know, ignorance doesn't change much. So, you know, what was it? It was 1400. Help me with the math. How many years ago was 700 AD?
1400 and something.
Thank you. So 1400 years ago, you know, they were still saying the world was made by a big explosion, or there was a guy up in the sky who made it all, or a different guy up in the sky who made it all and controls it all, right? And so Master Shantideva, you know, these are sophisticated worldviews, and these are smart people, and sophisticated arguments. And Master Shantideva lines them all up in the wisdom chapter and destroys them all one by one, so that by the time he's done, the only worldview left is this worldview, right? And then you're left with nothing else to believe except this worldview.
So that's the one that people couldn't hear, right? As he was teaching.
Yeah, some people, yeah. And then the 10th chapter is the dedication chapter, and you know, at the end of class we do the Gewa Di, Gewa Kun, right? By the virtue I collected in this class, hearing these holy things that nobody ever talks about, may everyone get to a tantric paradise, right? Achieve an angel's body and mind. So this comes from Master Nagarjuna, Arya Nagarjuna, and dedication, the one that we recited at the end of class, comes from Arya Nagarjuna. So dedication is taking the good karma that we just did, right, and putting it in the karmic bank so that we don't blow it by getting angry as we're like walking out the door to a fellow student or something, right? So it's consciously saying that, you know, all the good things I did today, you know, I'm sending that good energy out, and I am targeting that good energy and devoting that good energy to these positive outcomes and to these karmic ripenings. And so as a trained Buddhist, you know, we want to reinvest the karma and reap the karmic rewards. So where did giving go, right? I mean, where does giving come in? We went to the 10th chapter. The 10th chapter is basically giving. And the 10th chapter is very beautiful, and often this chapter is recited by itself. It's such beautiful verses. He's praying that he could turn his body into rain, which would fall in the hells and quench the suffering of beings there. And he's praying that every woman who's giving birth at that moment, that he takes away their pain. And he goes on for verse after verse after verse after verse of all the different ways that he could take away the pain of the world and offer himself and bring happiness to the world. So that's the structure of the bodhisattva, the guide to the bodhisattva's way of life. And so deep down inside, we have to say, it's important to see what resonates with you and where you are in your life, to see if spiritual goals will bring you happiness. Do we really feel and think that spiritual goals and attainments will bring us happiness? Or do we really feel and do we really think that a different combination of external stuff will bring us happiness? Yeah.
There's an awful lot of spiritual reportage delivered by people who report themselves to have achieved those sorts of attainments, where they're terribly miserable. Miserable, awful, beginning with the Nagarjuna and Talopa, and all sorts of, and Milarepa, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Now, how do you reconcile saying that if you're a spiritual being or a realized being, you'll be happy, with, say, you know, scriptural references of, you know, Arya Nagarjuna having problems.
Well, they seem to be giving actually quite the opposite point, where they say, you know, you have to suffer for your art if you're gonna be a spiritual practitioner, and if you wanna be happy, well, keep your head down and lead a conventional life, because, well, those people are happy, they shouldn't be. Okay, their happiness is,
Which ones?
that ordinary people are indeed happy, but it's an ignorant happiness, that they are lotus eaters, that they have been narcotized, but successfully narcotized by the ordinary business of life. And it's only when you stop doing that that you understand what the real crucifixion, to pick a very pointed point, but the real point of the crucifixion is that you experience suffering in a way that no ordinary individual can experience, but you do so for some greater purpose.
Yeah.
But that's not happiness by any.
Yeah, I mean, I could say for me.
Not to the mind that you're addressing.
Yeah.
You consider
Yeah.
that to be.
Yeah, I mean, so this goes back to your first question, right? You know, the most beautiful way to spend one's life, right, is in helping others. And it doesn't mean that you gotta put on red robes and wander around, you know, reciting from a book, right? To really engage in bodhisattva activity, you don't have to quit an ordinary job. You don't have to quit an ordinary family. You don't have to quit regular pursuits and regular activities, right? Bodhisattvas hang out wherever they are, right? Bodhisattvas engage wherever they are and whatever they're doing. It's not like if you cross that side of the street, that's the bodhisattva activity side of the street, you know? And where I am is like ordinary life. And this side of the street's not okay, and that side of the street is. You know, the idea that we have to go somewhere else and do something else, change the outer circumstances of our life to engage in bodhisattva activity is incorrect. I mean, in fact, if somebody thinks, you know, I gotta change my costume to be a bodhisattva, or I gotta move to another town, or whatever, then there's a fundamental misunderstanding there. Because bodhisattvas engage everywhere they are, regardless of where it is. You know, whether it's a prison, or class, or a family, or a job, or walking down the street, right? So we have to be thinking like a bodhisattva every moment, everywhere, with everything. And I personally would say that that is what sets apart the spiritual practitioner. You know, is it the case that a spiritual practitioner won't get beat up? Of course not. Could get beat up, right? I mean, you know, King Udayana, right? You know, remember the book, Ken Rinpoche published the book on King Udayana, you know, who was talking about, well, he said, oh yeah, I hate to digress. There's a story of an Arya who, you know, he was off in the Indian times, off in the forest, you know, living his own peaceable life, doing his own peaceable thing, and the king's partner was there with her retinue and stumbled upon him, and they got to chatting, and then the king came along with his hunting party and said, what are you doing in the woods with my wife, you scoundrel, or whatever he said. And they proceeded to tie him down to the ground, and then he told the story of how they cut off his you know, fingers and toes piece by piece, and you know, and dispensed with him. And how, you know, while it was extremely painful and while it was happening, he was, you know, aware of the causation and the emptiness and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So regardless of the fact that he was suffering, his mind was in a place of wisdom and collecting the right karma for the future. And so it's just what it is. You know, being a spiritual practitioner, one of the presuppositions that we carry is that being a spiritual practitioner means we won't have problems. No. You know, we have a collection of karmic seeds. You know, until we're, you know, 90, 80, 90, whatever percentage of the way done with the spiritual path, we have substantial negative karmic seeds ripening upon us and experience those results. The point here for us is that we choose to enter a spiritual path and traverse a spiritual path whereby we are constantly lessening the numbers and magnitudes of karmic seeds we're carrying, and constantly increasing the numbers and magnitude of virtuous seeds and thoughts and impulses that we're carrying, such that we're engaged in an upward spiritual evolution, upward happiness spiral, if you want to call it that, right? And Holy Geshe Michael describes it very nicely. I mean, I think for us in contemporary terms, when he says, we want to see a straight line. We want the chart to go from lower left, upper right, straight shot. Thank you very much. Doesn't work that way. It's like ask Chris. He'd be like, you can't trust the trade unless it's a complex pattern, right? On the chart.
Right, Heraclitus said nature loves to hide. So what's obvious is obviously wrong.
So, in our spiritual path, it's the same way, It's not even just like a little wave going in the upward direction. It's like waves within waves. You have an upward wave, and there's like, and then you have a downward wave, and like,
You can say cyclical in a linear progression.
Thank you. There you go. The proper graphic terms. It's a cyclical linear progression. Thank you. I'm going to try to remember that. And that's what we're talking about, right? Which is not to say there's not going to be a big drop, at some point, or a big spike at some point.
Right.
Look.
It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye.
Not sure what that means, but
No self.
okay.
So,
But right over my head.
You lost me on that one there.
But look, just to take it a step further, let's say one practices nicely, and let's say
Nicely.
Well, we know.
This is not that nice.
This is Ken Rinpoche. This is sort of Ken Rinpoche's imprinted upon me. He used to say nicely quite a lot. Practice nicely. So, let's say one practices very nicely and very well, right? And over a period of time, one collects the karma and meets like a tantric angel or something, right? And then you're like, or something like that, right? Something. And then you're like, wow, I see a tantric angel. How cool is that? And then you're like, shit, I can't pay the rent. Did it change that? No. Right? That's just how it is, right? Different karma, different ripening, right? It's like, oh, I get to hang out with Tantric Angel all the time. I have all these problems. Crap. You see what I mean? So these are not mutually exclusive things, right? The ripening of like amazing, powerful karmas does not remove, powerful virtuous karma, does not remove the negative karmas. It's just progress. It's nice progress, but it's just still just progress, Chris, There's stuff to deal with all the crap, okay? Sorry, this is our Bruce, whoever we're talking to, which is just the way it is, right? So, wherever we are, wherever we live, whatever our work is, that's where we are in Bodhisattva. That's where we engage in Bodhisattva activity, with the proper approaches and skillful means that are taught in the guide. And, you can have a family, you can be a normal person, you can wear whatever clothes you want. It's just a matter of having a totally different frame of mind and a totally different approach to priorities. My priority is being a bodhisattva and being ethical and helping people and seeing things with correct view all day long, with some kind of special view all day long. That's my job. That's my career. That's my priority. Everything else is filler. The rest fills in the free time, right? So that's the whole point of this book. Okay? And so if people just look at you and go like, oh, you're a schmuck, you're a bill collector, you don't know squat about squat, you're moving to Florida to retire, God, you're gonna be like all those other old people down there playing golf all day long. Let them call you Mr. Three Thoughts, right?
I assume you mean that in a nice way.
In the nicest possible way.
I didn't hear the disclaimer, but you mean that in a nice way. It was kind of like an indictment, wasn't it?
This would be the
Don't
modern.
stop.
This would be the Bruce. Bruce. This is the modern equivalent of Mr. Three Thoughts. Okay, you
Yeah.
move to Florida, you
Yeah.
play golf, and you're retired. Okay.
Right.
I'm not going to retire. If I was going to retire before, I'm certainly not going to retire now. Talk me out of it.
So people don't know. It's your inner state and your inner positioning, and that's what this is all about. So let's go with that.
I don't think I was given the benefit of the doubt.
You were. It was implicit.
It must be very implicit, deeply implicit.
The point is, being called Mr. Three Thoughts is a positive thing, as Mr. Shanti Deva has shown us.
Okay.
Because you are a great realized spiritual being and no one knows.
It's a roundabout way of saying we'll miss you.
Oh. I'll miss you too. Perhaps a little bit less than I would have thought, but I mean, still enough to come back.
You will miss
Oh no.
Did you say oh no?
No, I said oh no. Oh no.
I swore
There was a problem with the broadcasting.
I'm sitting right here.
You're still here.
I'm still here. I haven't gone yet. Say oh no.
I'm still here.
I guess it all comes out now.
Just wait till you go.
But then at least I won't be able to hear it.
Oh no, we'll broadcast.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. I can tune in.
I hope you
You can type questions.
You can on Hector Vision.
Yeah.
I can respond.
Yeah.
Can I blow it up remotely like a James Bond movie?
No, sorry.
No?
Someone just dropped out. I guess they didn't like the banter.
driving them away or driving them
They
out.
left the drove.
Yeah.
Alright,
You're
well,
killing
Bruce-
our numbers, Bruce.
We'll miss you dearly, Bruce. I hope we'll
Don't miss
see
me
you.
yet. I'm coming back next week.
No.
Miss me the week
Oh
after
no.
that. Oh, no. I heard him that time.
Oh no, we're losing more people.
Alright, shall we wrap it up then?
Let us dedicate with giving. So she poki shin metatra Niraling shin yundevim padi Sange shindu mitevargi Dropin namda shin la shivarsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kandinyatayani Gawadi Veokir Sunam Yeshe Zokzokshin Sunam Yeshe Lejunwe Dampa Kuni Toparsho.
By the power of our joyous effort, by the power of our wisdom, by the power of our sacred deeds, may we quickly realize bodhicitta. May we quickly come to the end of the path in this very life and end all suffering everywhere. Thank you all.
Thank you for teaching.
Pleasure. I think we need to set up, like, when you move to Florida, we need to set up a two-way video. So we can see you and you can still participate.
What about hearing? I've better heard than seeing, trust me.
You're gonna have to type, baby.
I don't type.
You're gonna have to type, and we're gonna be able to edit.